Welcome back to another episode of PTSD and Beyond, the place where we don't just talk about healing, we feel it. I'm your host, Dr. Deb Lynn, and today we're diving into a conversation that goes beyond motivation. It's about speaking to the soul. This episode is very personal, and it's for anyone who's ever felt unheard, doubted, or hurt by people who were supposed to support us the most. We'll talk about rediscovering ourselves, believing in ourselves when no one else does, and honoring the wisdom that we've always carried within. It's time to speak directly to our souls, to the part of us that never quit. It's the part of us that says, open your eyes and listen, and you'll find the missing piece, even when the world seemed against us. So let's begin. Let's start with pain. It deeply hurts when people that are around us deeply hurt us, especially our parents. Our parents, partners, close friends, people we call family, when they don't believe in us. It's more than just a lack of support. It's a wound that cuts deep to the core. It's a wound that cuts deep to the core of who we are. And growing up, we look to our parents, we look to our siblings, we look for the people around us for validation, for encouragement and belief. But what happens when that belief isn't there? When instead of encouragement and belief, we're met with criticism, doubt, or even abuse. The pain can leave a lasting mark. And what I want people to know is it doesn't have to define us. Despite the pain, there's something so special, so incredibly resilient about the wisdom of a child who knew better, about the wisdom of a child who knows better. And that child still lives within us. Yes, who knew and knows better. Even when the world says otherwise, we knew. And how did I know better? You know what? I have no clue. I just know that I did. And I didn't need permission from anyone to believe in myself. And you know what? Neither do you. Believing in ourselves is hard enough, but when those closest to us don't believe in us, people who are supposed to believe in us, like your parents, like your sister, like your brother, your relatives, your close friends, spouses. Yes, when they don't, it becomes even harder. But here's the thing. Even when no one else believes in you, there's a little voice inside. There's a little voice inside of you that knows the truth. See, each of us has an inner compass. I like to look at it as a guiding force. I can't explain it other than it is a feeling and a knowing. It is a guiding force that tells us who we are, no matter how the world wants to see us. And the journey of self-belief is about tuning in to that voice. The journey is self-belief. And that journey tunes into that inner voice and trusting it and letting it guide us through the hardest moments. Because when I reflect back, there's always been one thing that has never let me down. There's always been one thing that has guided me throughout all of the challenges in life. And that's this inner voice. And I want to tell you today, to believe in that voice. Even when the people around try to silence it, even when the pain is loud, even when that voice inside sometimes that emulates the things that people have said, that remind us of the things that people have done, that voice is stronger. That voice inside is stronger. It's your truth. It's your strength. It's your wisdom. It's your soul. And it's always been there. The funny thing about pain is pain can make us lose parts of ourselves, or at least make us think we lost them permanently. But here's the thing. That feeling of losing parts of ourselves is temporary. And as we rediscover ourselves, it isn't about becoming someone new. It's about peeling back the layers of doubt, peeling back the layers of fear, getting rid of shit that doesn't belong to us, that actually belongs to other people. And pain to find, you know what? You've been there all along. I want to remind people that you've never lost yourself. Even though the pain of being doubted, through the criticism, through the hurt, you were always there. You were always strong, you were always resilient, and you were wise. And now it's time to come back to that truth, to rediscover the strength that has always been inside of you. And if there's one thing that I want you to take away from today's podcast episode, it's to never give up on yourself. No matter how many times others do, no matter how many times you've been told you're not good enough or that you will never make it, you can and you will. I never quit on myself once. Not once. Through every hurtful word, through every moment of doubt from others, I always held on to the belief that I was worthy of more. And that's why I'm standing here today. Actually, I'm sitting here today. I'm doing this podcast. And I'm talking to you. Because you know what? You haven't quit either. And that's strength. That's power. That's your soul. And that's worth celebrating. This podcast episode and our podcast episodes at PTSD and Beyond is not about motivation. It's about truth. It's about speaking directly to the souls of people who've been doubted, criticized, or hurt, and reminding you that you've always been enough. That there's a quiet strength inside of you, and it's inside of all of us, that can be touched by the love, and that can be touched by the remembering who you are. It can't be touched by the opinions or doubts of others. It's that strength that you've carried throughout every dark moment that has kept you going, even when the world said you couldn't. I want to speak to that strength, to that unbreakable part of you that knows the truth, to that part of you that always has known that you're capable, that you're worthy, that you're powerful. And I want to remind you that even when the world doesn't see it, you do, because you've always known. I knew. I knew that when I was on a journey of 10 years, 10 years it took me to earn my undergraduate degree. 10 years. And what I was hearing around me was not, you can do it. What I heard was the criticism, and this is verbatim, You've been in school long enough, you could have been a doctor by now. And what I realized was those statements and that criticism and that projected criticism, there's a lot of criticism, had nothing to do with me. It was exactly that, projected pain. And I share that bit of information and part of my story because I always believed I could. I never doubted that I was going to finish. I never doubted that I couldn't do the work. I never doubted once. So through all the pain and all the criticism and even the deliberate, intentional obstacles, I finished because I believed in me. Because that inner voice that I'm talking about knew that I could, that I would, and that I did. So always remember this statement. I say this often to myself. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. Even when the world, and unfortunately people sometimes in our inner circle, will try to tell us who we are because they don't want us to remember who we are. You remember who you are. You remember who you are because you've always had that strength inside of you, and you always will because that's your soul. Thank you for listening to this PTSD and Beyond podcast episode today. My hope is that this conversation reminded you of your power, reminded you of your strength, and most importantly, reminded you of your truth. Remember, open your eyes and listen, and you'll find the missing piece. When the world feels heavy, when others doubt, never forget. Always remember who you are. If today's episode resonated with you, you know what? I'd love to hear from you. Please drop me a line at hello@ptsdandbeyond.org and let me know what this episode meant to you. Please subscribe, leave a review. A 5-star review would be great on wherever you're listening to this podcast episode. And more importantly, share this episode with somebody you know who needs to hear it. And maybe that's yourself that needs to listen to this episode more than once. And that's okay. And if you want to support the podcast, please check us out at our Patreon page. Until next time, take care, trust yourself, remember who you are, and also remember, take what resonates and go beyond.